Hello, and welcome to AI and Payments. What can AI do for you? My name is Derek Marinos, your host and moderator for today's discussion, where we'll explore the transformative capabilities of AI in the payments industry and delve into how this technology is reshaping the way businesses and consumers handle transactions. We'll cover a wide range of topics, including key sector challenges and how AI may be leveraged to drive operational efficiency and personalize the banking experience, and how AI may help with fraud detection. We'll also take a closer look at some practical use cases and consider the future possibilities that GenAI brings to the payment space. Now, let's meet our esteemed panel. David Hooper is a vice president at CGI and a leading banking and payments executive who brings more than 25 years of expertise to the conversation. David is based in Toronto. Also based in Toronto is Juryn, an AI leader who specializes in crafting strategic AI solutions while driving transformative results for CGI's clients. And Cheng is a seasoned technology leader with more than 17 years of experience in the financial services industry. Adam spearheads the strategy, design, and execution of innovative solutions within fraud and financial crimes technology at the Royal Bank of Canada. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Well, first, I think a really great place to start is...
Thanks, Derek.
Yeah, it's great to have you. The current context, I think, is really important, and that's a great place to start. I'd love to hear from all of you with the current state of the union for payments in Canada. David, why don't you kick things off?
Well, it's been an exciting time for about, almost the last decade in payments. As we've laughed many times, it's been cool to be in payments again. We've gone through the high-value payment changes, payments modernization. We're now into the second phase of that, which is the introduction of real-time payments to Canada. And then beyond that, there's lots of things on the horizon. But really what I think we're facing now is that shift from a batch, end-of-day processing type of world that we've lived in for many, many years to a real-time world. And that becomes 24/7, 365. Have to be available to answer questions for customers, solve their problems, and just the movement of money more seamlessly, or without friction, across borders and of course domestically. So there's a lot going on in payments still.
Chris.
Yeah, and of course we're seeing a transformation, right? We're continuing to see all industries just jumping on the AI maybe bandwagon just to try and identify and really drive some of these results that we're wanting to see. Like I'm seeing a ton of stuff. Really, efficiency is the big focus. How can we drive that? Security, which I know Adam will love to chat on it and touch on, and then also customer experience are some of the big areas that I'm seeing some of the driving forces and the changes that need to really be implemented across the payments industry.
Very interesting. And Adam, your perspective, the state of the union right now with payments.
Absolutely. I think, I think if you think about payments and the use of AI, I think there's a ton of use cases out there. Payments is no exception, right? When you talk about real-time detection, we really need that as part of real-time rails. And when you look at what was the technologies before using rule-based detection, you're really casting very small nets, right? You're casting small nets, and a lot of them by using AI and basically big data technologies like Hadoop, Elastic, and Kafka. You're really analyzing large amounts of information now in real time. You're now allowing for immediate approval of safer transactions and quicker identify of fraudulent ones. So now you're casting a much wider net and a finer net at that. So certainly the advancement of AI and also payment, they go hand in hand.
Oh, very much so. And again, when we're looking at it, what is the role of AI in the payments industry? I think that's a great way to start this conversation, David.
Yeah. I'll take first stab at that. Of course, we're seeing AI, much like other technologies we've experienced. You've got to play with it to really understand what is it, how does it work, and what can I apply it to? And we start looking at what are the use cases. We went through this with blockchain, which is a great example of brand new technology. Let's figure out, how it works, play with it, experiment with it, test it on different things, and find out, what it really does. If you've got a hammer now, let's go looking for a nail. AI, we're already seeing many, many use cases in different areas, and it's everything from the fraud elements that Adam was talking about. We're seeing it in terms of being able to go through vast amounts of data to help with process and procedure type of things. We're seeing it on transactional lookups to look at historical data to ensure that the payment messages themselves are correct. So there's a lot of potential applications there of not just automating. It's taking a lot of the automated procedures and capabilities that we have today and advancing them. So, well, I'll let everyone else jump in, but there's a lot of use cases that people are looking into where we think it's applicable and applicable now. It's not a Horizon 2 or Horizon 3. It's something you can do now.
Yeah, maybe I'll kind of build on that. There's kind of two things that come to my mind when you talk about that, David. Like number one is we talked, like I was talking about the efficiency, right? Like we want to have more automation. We want to kind of improve the way that we're doing processing, and the way in which we can improve data entry and compliance checks using natural language processing or NLP or large language models. It really starts to open up these huge possibilities that we weren't able to see like even a couple of years ago. Like there's so much more we can do, and that drives huge opportunities for like the operational costs being reduced and minimizing human error. Like that to me is a huge component that can really drive the efficiency that we want to see. And then if we looked at the customer experience, we can get these new personalized experiences, right? It's not just when we think of the chatbots we had before or the automation we had before, it was always like very much like scenario driven. And it was very much just one thing you could do versus another. And now like we're developing and designing solutions that are going to be tailored to people's behaviors, their preferences, that still may be powered by some chatbots, but like it drives these new things that are always improving, that are learning, and every time we add more data and more data sources, which I'm sure we'll talk about some of those different that we want to tap into. It's just the improvements that I'm seeing is just it really does open up on new possibilities in that customer experience personalization standpoint.
I'm glad you added that second part because that customer experience is a really important part of it. The operational ones, I mean, that's a fairly obvious one that everyone's looking into the cost efficiencies, but it's that experience. So all of our marketing and product friends who have been talking about, the marketing to the one for many years and personalized experiences, I mean, they've been able to do, take that quite a ways. It's now a huge leap for them in terms of personalizing that experience. And I'm finding with a lot of the client discussions, it's not just the customer experience, it's the employee experience. And how do we improve it, the capabilities and the speed at which the employees can act to improve the experience of the customer and their satisfaction? Like it's a very interesting crossover point between them all.
I really appreciate this offering here, gentlemen, because you're really setting the table for the conversation that we're going to have here in this webinar. We're going to go into greater detail about this, of course, as well.
As if we had a plan, Derek.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we're doing just fine. Adam, I'd love to get your perspective here too, as well, on that, and in terms of where you think and how like what role AI has to play in the payment sector.
Well, I think in the payment sector, we're thinking that it adds a level of strong detection to the payment flow. As mentioned, when we're talking about real-time detection, it is part of the ability to reply quickly and to reply in an accurate fashion, right? So as we know our customers within our FIs, we know our customers best. We have a vast amount of information that we can leverage. And that's what AI needs. Really, the lifeblood of artificial intelligence is customer information. It's knowing their transactions, and it's by leveraging that so that we can use it to better service our clients, not only from a fraud detection perspective, but also tuning those AI models to be able to offer that bespoke experience during a payment process. So certainly a huge part of the payment flow.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's going to bring us to our, one of our, key segments here, which is key sector challenges. And David and Chris, I'd like to fire this one at you first, and let's define some things here. What challenges do banks face when implementing AI solutions for payments?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe David, I can start and then go add on from there. But so one big thing, and this is across really, I'd say across the Canadian banking industry, is that often Canadian companies, we're not always like the leaders in technology change and innovative tech that comes out, right? We like to do a fast follow, I find, like, let's see what works, let's see what's going on, and then we'll make sure we make that work there. With AI, that's not been the case, right? People really feel, and rightfully so, that they need to move quickly and experiment. But this is something new to a lot of the banks and a lot of the payment areas, and we're seeing that it's not something that there's been experience in, and something that they're built to scale on. So that's one area of focus, is how do we do that? And I'm sure we'll touch on a few points on the how. Responsible use of AI, that's top of mind for a lot of our organizations. For CGI, that's something we're hugely focused on. And you want to make sure that you're really getting the ethical, fair, unbiased systems, but there's a lot of times that the training data can lead to those unfair outcomes. So we want to make sure that we're constantly monitoring, adjusting, have an approach, a governance model that allows for us to do that. And then maybe another one is a technical and skill gap, right? We've talked about Gen AI for a little bit, and it feels like it's been here for just a minute, and a lot of people want to say, okay, how do I do this? How do I make it work? But it's not something that people have had a lot of experience in. So how do you actually bring in those skills? We want to have people that are experienced doing this kind of stuff, but at the same time, it's a new tech that's changing, and the hype cycle is extremely high on it. So how can we really understand how to do that and bring in the right people and identify what does even the right person mean in this space? This is like some of the big challenges that I'm seeing in the AI space today.
There's a lot to unpack in that statement. I'll add to a couple of things you said. We're absolutely seeing the experimentation, right? A lot of proof of concepts. I think we all started into this thinking that there was a huge expense with the LLMs and the technology behind it. I think it's becoming more affordable. I think we're starting to understand that you can use the tools that a number of the large technology companies can bring to the table and not have to build all of this yourself, although that's always an option. And I think because of that, we're moving from a point where it's just a proof of concept. I think to really get the value out of it, you've got to get into production. And it can be MVP, right? Keep it small and tight, but get it into production and leave it there, and then build them out. Otherwise, we do, across a bank, 3 or 4 proof of concepts in various areas and pillars, and it never gets tied together, or we don't ever get to production because, well, that was nice, but let's move on. There's sort of those things. And the other thing I really liked what you said was along the idea of the ethical use of AI. I know, obviously, CGI, I won't talk too much about what we've been approaching it, but it's definitely, we're not out to replace our employees, nor do we think our clients should be replacing their employees. But it helps with the shift that every bank has been talking about for years. Is I want my people doing more high value, more advisory types of services, not the mundane, rote, keyboard entry types of things. So where we started with RPA and other AIs, as you said, Chris, the Gen AI takes it to a whole new level because of its language capabilities to take over things like data entry. And, we're taking data from customers, be it keyed in or PDFs, and turning it into digital information that we can then use. So I think we're seeing a lot of proof of concepts around digitizing data, getting our people away from doing those menial sort of tasks, and then being able to shift them into those more value-added services, and particularly, certainly on the business and commercial side, far more advisory, and that goes with consumers as well than just routine task takers. I think the Gen component of AI becomes interesting in that menial task, routine task, repetitive task, and taking over those sorts of things so that we can free up our quite knowledgeable employee base, and get them doing these better value-added tasks.
No, that's very interesting, and I'd like to scratch at some of that with Chris in terms of a roadmap to success. I mean, I think David's sort of kind of getting some of those blocks down that we could take some steps on. But if you could kind of put some more light on that and on how we can overcome some of these challenges and articulate maybe a roadmap of success, I think that'd be really great.
For sure. Maybe what I'll do, like when I talk about that, I can talk about some of the ways we approach it from an AI standpoint, some of the implementation of a roadmap. What do we want to look for, and what does success look like from that, right? Like, so something it's not something new, but something that's really important is PPT, the people, process, and tools that are required to be successful on a roadmap. Often we think of the tools, the technology. I'm a tech guy. I love tech. And we think, okay, I ask, what tools do I need? Which hyperscaler should I use? Which model's the best? Like everyone wants to talk in that way. And it's important, right? We want to make sure that we're doing the right things for our organizations. We're leveraging investments that's already there, utilizing what we can because it's going to help to speed us up. And it's part of that roadmap, but the people and process need to be taken into consideration too. From a process standpoint, AI is not the same as like a web app, right? The way we deploy it, the dependencies on data, the large amounts of data, those data pipelines being enriched, having either real-time, near real-time data adds a lot of complexity to be fed into these models. So we have to make sure that we're doing the right things there and we have the right approach that we go. And also model drift is something that's big. And model drift is where we train it on some type of data. And then the data that we're actually making our predictions on or using in the models is different. So the predictions, they can sometimes, start to be a lot more poor and kind of start to suck a little bit. So how do we understand how to retrain, do that type of stuff? How do we build that into our process? And then from the people standpoint, David was talking about that, right? Like sometimes people hear AI and they think, okay, I'm being replaced. Right? We don't want that. We don't want that fear. We want to have we really look at the human in the loop. How do we train people on how to use this and what this means for them? It's not that AI is going to replace your job, but someone who uses AI might. So how do we bring people in to be able to do these type of things? And then also training and upskilling people to be able to use this, right? These are new skills. I was talking about GenAI is new. Well, that means there's an opportunity for a lot of people to bring in new skills that they didn't have before. So how do we bring that as part of our roadmap? We don't leave people behind because we're making a change. We bring people along to be successful. So that's something I look at is from the people, process, and technology standpoint.
And that's very important. And it's all about enablement and putting more tools in the box as well. And that's fundamental too. Adam, I'd love to hear from you on,
yeah, if I can add to that, Chris and David touched on some great points there. And there's a fundamental point that I kind of raised earlier around data is the lifeblood. I think when you look at how AI functions in a lot of the organizations, there is an element of architecture, right? When we think about, yes, there are tools, there are AI engines, and then you start to POC, but then you start to realize something. You start to realize that, do we have the right pipeline of data coming in? Are we organized in a way where we're funneling information through a single pipe where we have a 360 view of the client and their activities? Because I think some of the challenges inherently are the fact that sometimes the data is fragmented, sometimes data is inconsistent in different data silos. And so AI is great. Tools are now evolved from, before where it's just certain data scientists have access. Now there's tools that have ML ops, auto ML. There's a ton of tools out there now. But are you sure you're architected in the right way so that you can leverage those tools properly and see the real value from it? I see that as one of the real challenges that some industry and some of the other institutions are having adopting AI.
Right, and it's leveraging that data and making sure it's connected in a way where you can glean those insights and work through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a great point. I'll just build on that a little bit. We've certainly seen different banks have different strategies, different parts of the banks have different strategies. That data fragmentation, and here we're going to step away from the coolness of AI and say it is about the data. And if you haven't got it structured, if you don't have access to it, you've got to have those foundational elements in place. We've certainly seen, some of the, let's call it the challenger banks or the neo banks, where they've been digital from day one. I mean, they're doing some very cool things like tokenizing all of their data. which makes it prime for AI. But when you've been in business for 100 years plus, and your systems are 40, 50 years old, your data is in different pockets, and it's a job into itself to grab it from all the sources in different formats, and just even the way you communicate with the systems that are hosting that data, pulling it into one place, as you said, Adam, that dashboard concept of getting a 360 view of the customer. You're probably hitting 10 or 12 systems to get all of the information you need to drive that dashboard. And that's the process. And it's not pretty, and it's time consuming, and it's got some cost to it. But to ever get the advantage of the AI, you need all that in place. So yeah, there's some homework to do to get that in place.
And that homework and that data, I think it's crucial as well when we're looking at personalized banking as well, correct? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if we don't understand much or don't have the data in place, I mean, really, how far can we move with that? And I'd like to transition to that block, David, because how does AI, particularly Gen AI, affect the customer payments experience?
Well, I think we've yet to see it impacted. I think it's what's coming. If we look at most payments, I mean, they're pretty straightforward as to how you do it. You access it through your bank mobile or online banking app, or you're in a store. That's a different type of payment where you pull out your card and, tap on the machine or insert it. I think in the end of the day, something that we've talked about in the payment world for many years is what's important to the customer. And it really comes down to a couple of things. And the first one is, what's the urgency? How quickly, if I have to make a payment or transfer money, same difference, how quickly does it need to get to where it's going? And then the flip question is, how much am I willing to pay for that? And it's just like the Amazon delivery type of approach, right? It's $10 for delivery within the next 5 business days, and it's $35 for overnight delivery. So depending on the urgency of the payment you need to make, that's sort of where it goes. For years, we've talked about the routing of payments, potentially letting the customer choose. Most customers, they don't care what method. They don't want to know about the rails. We've trained businesses to say, I need to send a wire, or I have an EFT or an ACH in the US. But most of the time, they just want to get the money to where it's got to go as quickly as possible based on the cost. And I think where I've seen conversations around this, the use of Gen AI, is to have that conversation to suss out what's the urgency and what's your cost factor, or tolerance. Maybe that's the better word. I think we can use Gen AI to help determine what's the customer's need, and then we can make routing decisions, because we have different costs on different rails. So let the customer tell us how quickly and how much, and then we'll make the decisions from there. For other things that we've talked about within the payment world is the ability to switch from different rails. Again, based on sort of the need. But if you have an inbound wire, can I turn that into an RTR transaction for the final leg to get it into your account? And that's probably even more important, not so much for domestic, but international payments. They come in one method. Can I send it through a faster, lower cost method? And will Gen AI play a role, or AI in general play a role in determining that best cost, and it's best cost for the customer? And let's be honest, there'll also be an internal look of what's best for us as a business. How do we want to manage this?
True enough. Adam, from a
I think that'll come.
perspective, what do we need to look out for, and how do we mitigate against the false positives here?
Yeah, I think the incredible thing about this technology and Gen AI and AI is that it does actually both things. It helps personalize the process per client, so that customer experience improves, but it also secures at the same time. So you're not losing one or the other, which this checks both boxes, which is rare when you have to talk about technology. You implement one, you kind of lose. You implement security, you lose the other in terms of convenience. But I think with AI and generative AI, like, we're looking at all the data that we have on the customer, and then we can start to understand the customer a bit more, understand them as they kind of interact with us, and there we're able to apply different types of bespoke experience, like I was mentioning, because fraud is always known as, okay, how much friction can we apply so that we can lose less. I think with the type of personalization and the type of data that we have, we can start to tune it depending on the risk level, right? If we have a very trusted client and we understand how they interact with us, sometimes a one-time passcode and just interacting with a phone that you already have in your hand is very convenient, and this also offers that level of security. When we dial it up, we can ask for more of a ID verification or a PIN on glass. So using kind of AI to sort of tune the risk of how much we're willing to accept, how much convenience we're able to offer, I think it offers a greater customer experience, in my opinion.
Indeed, it does. And Chris, let's look at what current trends and what are some of the interesting use cases you're seeing out there.
For sure. So, well, one current trend I just heard from David there, I'm expecting Jeff Bezos to call him about prime payments or something like that. I don't know what we're gonna call it, but I'm excited to hear about this new product that David's coming with. But and like in all seriousness, like there's a few areas that and trends that we're seeing. Like one is knowledge management, right? We talked about that efficiency, and that's really one way to think of that. The way that we're seeing AI really start to improve the employee experience, the customer experience. We actually had a specific implementation that we did, or a use case that we did, where we're helping with the changes to CPBR Plus with the cross-border payment, and working we created a implementation, like a bot that was used for the payment operators to interact with, to be able to ask questions about the transition from MXMT. So we knew that people knew the old system fairly well, but the new system they didn't know as much. So we trained the bot on a pretty technical PDF, like 400 plus page, a pretty complex Excel sheet. And, you could ask a question saying, how does this date format change from this to this? Give you the answer, give you a reference. Had to do quite a bit of data engineering. So it's not just, plug it in, AI does everything. You got to do the data engineering with it, do some prompting to help it understand how to respond in a certain way, not hallucinate, things like that. But the outcome was great. More junior people or less experienced people were able to ramp up faster, get more knowledge quicker, an assistant at your side. One thing that we didn't expect to see was the senior people had a better experience too. They had less questions coming to them, right? You didn't have to go to the expert all the time, asking the same question over and over again. People were just able to get the answer that they needed to free up our experts. We're talking about that, the better, doing more high value work. That's an example of that. So knowledge management is great. You can start to expand that to other knowledge bases, the all that kind of stuff that's there, your incidents, be able to really improve the overall experience and expand that out. So that's one thing. I definitely see like that with contactless payments, digital wallets are really opening up that data that we want to have. We can know more about people, where they're at, what they're doing, how they're doing that. It opens up those customer experience pieces that AI can enhance those. And then as Adam was saying, we can also improve the security, authentication, and things like that to understand. As we know more about people, we can have better insights into what is, acceptable behavior and unacceptable, and where do we apply that friction, as Adam was talking about. So that's another good one. And maybe just one more that I'm like kind of pumped about is we can start to see more opportunities for financial inclusion, right? There's underserved populations, there's people who are underbanked, underserved, that we having new data sources, new ways to analyze and create predictions, create products, means that we can start to have some people that may not have been traditionally have opportunities to use some of these systems, to have some of these products, and now they can, right? So it's some underserved people who may not be saying, that they've never been offered to them because it was just the value wasn't there to create a product, or is too hard, too much work. Now we can start to do that. So you get to kind of start to level some of the playing field. And as we do that, I think that's going to really create an opportunity for more and more people to be doing that. But that's a trend that I'm seeing, like people really exploring and trying to really push on.
Yeah, and Adam, I know you scratched at this a bit before, but I'd like to hear maybe a little bit more from you in a bit more context, if you don't mind, regarding AI and its capacity to predict customer behavior and preferences to personalize the payment experience.
Yeah, and so absolutely. And what our approach has been is to really start to modernize the infrastructure and start to add more centralized pipelines of data into a common detection platform. And that's how we start to understand the clients a bit more, right? We start to add business controls and detection capabilities on those different defensive layers. And through this modern architecture, we can identify the risk patterns and the channels and the products to prevent that monetization of fraud. I'll just give you an example of some of those scenarios where you know, a fraudster, for example, would come in and they would you know, attack different channels, right? So they would first, you know, attack call centers to sort of social engineer a phone number change, and they would come through a digital channel. And then from that digital channel, when they go in, they get an SMS message, and all of a sudden it's showing up in the fraudster's phone number, and now they're able to monetize that. I think basically that's the understanding of the client information, understanding how the data comes in, and understanding how we can sort of provide that 360 protection for the client, and offering that bespoke experience.
Yeah, and I'd like to move on to operational efficiency right now, and I think this is an important part of the conversation as we talk about this. And Chris, I'd like to come back to you, and then David, I got a couple for you waiting in the bullpen. First, Chris, how can AI improve payment processing efficiency and accuracy?
Yeah, so I've touched on a couple. Maybe let's you know, I think that it's been maybe hidden in some of the answers we've been giving, right? So a few areas that I really see the improvements being there are we start thinking about the ability to start having more real time and pass-through processing, right? That's always a question I get first is what can we do to get that more pass-through? We want to have faster. We want to have this, you know, that we before would have raised a flag, like Adam was saying, you know, we want to create some friction. Can we have more of these pass through that are not going to cause undue risk, but then to improve the customer experience by having that, right? We do that all the time through the automation of manual processing, but by being able to start to leverage some of those better capabilities to understand, you know, both customer behavior, what they mean. You know, the example that people like to give is from a name standpoint. Am I Chris Juryn? Am I Christopher Juryn? Am I C Juryn? Am I Christopher William Juryn? Like all these different names. I'm giving out a lot of information, I guess, about myself, so I should maybe be careful with security. But
Fuzzy logic.
yeah, exactly. But like, how do we automate that in a better way to do these and have like that intelligence built in? And that's a simple example. We're already past that for sure, but those are the types of examples that are easy to consume and understand on that. Starting to have more predictive analytics to understand what to expect and where to go, right? David was talking about the speed or the what people are willing to pay for. Well, how do I predict that? How do I provide a product that actually just provides it out of the gate and that we can just trust to do that? So that's something that I think is really something we're going to see. If that creates that, you know, consistent performance that you see over and over again, so we start to know what to expect, and better data integrity and improvements. So that's kind of on the customer side that I see. On the back end, AI ops is really where I think it's at. That's something that we really have a lot of focus on. And AI ops is that proactive monitoring and incident management, right? So it's doing the predictive maintenance, understanding when we get a ticket or an issue, an incident that comes up, to be able to process that automatically, or at least pull in information quite a bit to make it faster to see a better experience. And also automating our systems to have better deployments, better performance, to be able to just, you know, deploy infrastructure in a better way, identify what we need to have through our AI ops, and just pump that through. And I know, like Adam, that's something that your team does quite a bit around that. Like that's where I see that kind of everything coming together. Because if we have more of the machine generated data kind of upfront, now we know more what's going on in the systems. We can then use that because we'll have more confidence in our predictions to do that. So that's something I just see, you know, building upon it.
Okay, and
Yeah.
David, you know, can AI-driven predictive analytics, as you know, Chris was alluding to, can it really help banks manage liquidity and cash flow?
Good question. I'll take a sidestep first. That predictive analytics, I mean, that's been a holy grail sort of search for quite a while. The idea of being able to completely understand the customer, what's the next best product to offer them. And we've known for years it takes a lot of data on the input side. A lot of, you know, if we're doing digital marketing campaigns and product offers, you're changing the offers all the time to get the data back to know, how do I alter the offer to the customer to, you know, get them to go, yep, that's what I want. I'll take that product or that service. So I think we've seen a lot of growth in the predictive analytics, but as we said earlier, it depends a lot on the data and the foundations and how you store it. When we take it to that next step, as you said, Where do we see it going? What's it really going to do for us in terms of the experience? We've looked at the routing sort of components of it. Operationally, what does it do? I actually like a lot of the things that, as Chris was mentioning, in terms of what AI can do in the operational side,
Hmm.
for that straight through processing, right? There's a lot of that, or being able to move quicker. I think the speed, one of the things I'm very excited about is that the fact that we can do it at speed means we can implement more rules. And that goes back to what Adam said. If we tighten the rules up too much, we get too much friction, client gets upset. We loosen it off too much, client doesn't have the friction, fraud happens, client gets upset. So we're always playing that game, that fine line. But I think we can implement more business rules. And it's a combination of not necessarily trying to stop the fraud. There's that. But as Chris said, how do we learn what the client's proclivities are? What are their preferences? So that I can adapt these rules to go, okay, Chris doesn't mind this getting fixed, or Chris doesn't mind us shipping it this way, but he definitely wants to have this. He doesn't mind having a two-factor authentication or a one-time password thrown at him just to validate that, yeah, he or his company has done what, has made the payment or something like that. So we're seeing a lot of opportunities in that sense of applying this technology to be smarter. And yeah, I know it goes without saying it's artificial intelligence. Of course it's smarter, but it's the layers and layers of business rules. And I can apply rules only to Chris that are completely different from the rules I apply to Adam. So it's that that personalized experience, but it's also from a bank perspective. I can personalize our operations to match different customer segments, different industry sectors, and then the customers themselves based on our interaction and knowledge of them. So there's an awful lot of ability to fine tune at speed, right? At scale, which is, we haven't had that before.
I think that's a really great analogy, because at the end of the day, it's the customer's threshold for pain or for their tolerance for it, very much like an investment advisor. And when you're talking about fraud, I think that's going to bring us to our next segment. And Adam, we're going to bring you into focus here for security and fraud. And really, how does AI enhance fraud detection and prevention in payment transactions?
Yeah, I think I can go on for the whole segment on just this topic, I guess, right? But I think I'll hone it into real-time rails, right? I think when we're going into irrevocability and we're getting into the speed at which it needs to happen and the resiliency it needs to happen, you need just to modernize your architecture, right? How do you first, you need to design it for real time. As David and Chris were mentioning, you need the tools to just make those decisions quicker with the vast amount of data points that you have, and be able to be more accurate, because you sometimes only have one chance to get it right. And so what we started to do was think through the different layers of our detection, and using AI at each of those layers. First is understanding the different the client journey. So what is the endpoint information that we have? So the device, that device information that whether it's the phone numbers that we have, or the device IDs that we have, or the type of risky information that we have on that particular person. We have the ability to understand how they navigate inside a particular channel. So as they come into online banking, or mobile phones, or as they're in branches or in ATMs, because there's several channels. So we have to understand how they navigate, their transaction patterns, their spend patterns, as they're kind of in each of these channels. What do they do? And then so all those you can apply AI and pattern behavior on top of. And so each of them offer different scores. And as you sort of understand different scores through different channels, through different endpoints, we're able to sort of make a very holistic 360 decision. And another additional layer we add on top of that is understanding relationships, right? You send to someone, you interact with certain merchants more often than not. And it's to build those links to those different endpoints or edges, as we call them, to be able to determine the common relationships and apply a model on top of that, so that we can understand the predictability of you interacting with those specific beneficiaries or edges or nodes or those relationships that you have built with those merchants. And so with all that together, we're able to sort of detect and predict the fraud a lot more accurately and quickly.
Yeah, you get a better sense of the customer's ecosystem in many ways, and what they like to do and where they like to go. And again, this comes down to personalizing an experience, and also protecting on a mass scale too, which I think is really important. You touched on a very important word there, I think, Adam, modernization. I think that's key. And I think everybody here can agree that that's really important. And Chris, I'd like to get your perspective, and maybe David to kind of complete it afterwards. What
Can I
steps
jump
can
in?
banks take?
Let me just jump in for a second.
Yeah.
I'll finish off what Adam said. That lets me go back
Yeah.
to the question you originally asked me that I avoided about the cash flow and cash management, right?
Yeah.
The banks are pretty good about managing themselves, but everything he just said about the predictability and the patterns
Mm,
can help banks offer better cash flow management, liquidity management to the customer side.
more
I mean,
confidence.
as a bank, I know how much money I've got on deposit at my account at the Bank of Canada. I know what my typical obligations are, day by day over the course of a month. But it's that ability to now do better in terms of scenario testing and cash flow forecasting for the customers, because we can now look at the vast streams of historical data and understand those customer patterns. I just wanted to go back to that. That's truly the cash flow and cash management liquidity type of capabilities that I think you're going to see a lot more over the next 6 to 18 months. Banks putting out better tools because they've got the technology.
But that's tremendous value for
Absolutely.
everyone, businesses, consumers, everybody at stake, because there's greater confidence and understanding of behavior, and a reasonable expectation at the end of the day, which everybody in business, I think those are two rails that everybody can roll comfortably on when they're satisfied. I think we can all agree with that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Carry on
gentlemen.
with your question for Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And in modernization and implementation, activation and enablement, these are I think really important to
Now I'm
talk
really
about.
happy it's Chris's question.
Yeah, no kidding. We're mindful of the clock as well. It's an important question, Chris, and I'd like you to take your time, but be as efficient as you can to tell me a bit about the steps that bank can take to ensure successful AI implementation for payments.
Sure. So I'll just talk like super fast the entire time, make sure I get everything in, no problem. So what, AI it provides a really unique opportunity for banks to experiment and drive really immediate value. It's one of the few times we see this with new tech. Clients that have been most successful, really, they share different characteristics. And really with my team, we have an approach, 12 weeks to AI, that's built on our 4 E's of AI, but it really helps the clients to focus on how to go 0 to AI in less than a quarter. Some of the things that I see commonalities when people are successful with AI. One, make sure you're following like a structured, validated approach. You're not just trying something to see if see what happens. If you can't fail, you can't learn. You have to have an idea of what success is. You have to have that march towards it. You can pivot from there, but you have to have that. That's first and foremost. I see it all the time. People just trying stuff. Responsible AI, we talked about it. Ethical AI has to be there from the start. It has to be baked in, not bolted on. That's super important to just not be like, oh, and at the end, we're going to do it. Same with security, right? We don't do that with security. You can't just be like, oh, we'll add it at the end of that. No. From the beginning, have an approach, have an idea of how you're going to do that. I'm a big fan of testing before you invest in a bunch of stuff. So we have a strategy. We can actually build some low-cost AI use cases on pre-trained or open source models. And we can leverage your own data, like leverage it on what you don't just do it on what you think it should look like. Use what you actually have and iterate on it to reduce the cost and risk. And then finally, when we talked about make sure you're going to answer those questions, answer questions around ROI. Understand what that's going to be. Work to validate that. I'm a big fan of lean startup. The great the flywheel that we try to create on there to create an experiment, validate it, and then continue to move forward. Right? Build, measure, learn cycle is super important here, but focus on your ROI and build out that use case to have validated results. So those are some of the things that I see that are really important to have.
Great, thanks. As we come to a conclusion here, gentlemen, I'd love to get at least from each of you, roundtable rapid fire. What are you most excited about in the next 12 to 24 months?
Well, for me, I think it's the speed and the efficiency that we get from faster payments. Obviously, participating in a network that offers clients, that level of convenience, the amount of the amount that you're able to transact on is certainly going to be a lot more than what they're used to, which offers them the business opportunities that now that this enables them. But also when we talk about AI, it's able to also support them in that journey, right? Able to sort of offer them the convenience as well as the security that they need. So hugely excited about that.
Great. David?
I think for me, it's seeing where we're going to go and what the possibilities are. Yeah, that was a lame answer. With RTR coming, I think there's a huge opportunity to help serve particularly small businesses, right? The SMBs, SME world, corporates and commercial size entities, they'll get lots out of this as well. But I think the small business community, which, as we all know, is a massive part of our economy and employers and all of that, there's a lot of good things coming to them because of RTR and our ability to create new services with AI. I think we're going to see a massive shift in that area. That's what really gets me excited. There's stuff for consumers too, of course, but it's small business that's going to win.
Chris?
Well, yeah, maybe there's kind of two things that
Yeah,
really
very quickly.
I'm excited for. One is there's an idea from a book, Power and Prediction. That's a pretty famous AI book, of point solution versus entire system. So we're doing a lot of point solutions right now. We're adding AI into specific things to make specific areas better. But as we actually design systems around AI, it's going to just totally change what's available and how we do this. And I see that happening closer, maybe in the 16 to 24. I know you said 12 to 24, but that's one area that I see. And the other area is the idea, and the reason we're seeing all these people invest now, first mover advantage, really want to get into AI is because AI is a flywheel, right? If I have the first move and I get pretty good predictions, pretty good products that are using this, people want to use it. So then that means I'm getting lots of data that's coming into my system, which means now I'm getting more data to get even better predictions, which means more people want to use my system. So there's all these opportunities that are here right now and to actually be successful on. If you can move into that, if you can get there, then that's something that's going to really help you. So I was talking about, things you need to do, but it is also about how do we get moving forward and start to deliver value immediately, as soon as we can, because as we're going to see some of those people really take off, and it's going to be hard for people to catch up. And I'm excited to see who gets ahead and how that all plays out in the coming months.
Yeah, very well. Listen, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time. Special thank you, of course, to Payments Canada and our panel of distinguished guests. For David Hooper, Chris Juryn, and Adam Cheng, I'm Derek Marinos. Thanks for watching. Be well, everybody.